For the first time since 2015, your Duke Blue Devils have started ACC play 2-0. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast, brought to you by Comfort Mechanical Contractors, Durham's premier commercial HVAC installation and service company. For more information, go to comfortmc.com or call 919-383-2502. I'm your host, Brian Kennedy, joined as always with my co-hosts, Josh Cox, Scott Medlin, and Jamie Holt. And as I stated earlier, the Blue Devils start ACC play 2-0 after a big, convincing win, no matter who you ask, State fans included, 24-3. And as always, before we give our thoughts on the game, we got to hear from the man himself. Here's head coach Mike Elco post-game after the big win.
Hats off to North Carolina State. I thought that was a hard-fought game. Obviously, a lot of respect for Dave and the job that they do over there. I thought the story of our game tonight was our defense. I thought our defense, we challenged them earlier in the week to step up. We knew the best defense on the field tonight would win the football game, and it had to be us to get us where we wanted to go, and I thought it certainly was. I thought they played lights out from beginning to end. Proud of Henry. Thought he did a really good job managing the game. Obviously, not at overly gaudy stat line, but I thought he managed the game the way we wanted him to, and so was really happy with how he played. We were able to create explosives. Thought that was really important with the way they play defense, and the amount of bodies they have in and around the line of scrimmage. We knew we had to create explosives to be successful, and we were able to get that done. And then Jeremiah Hazley, how about him stepping up and replacing Nicky Dalmolin and doing the things that he needed to do as we continue to just be a next man up operation. And so really happy with how our guys played tonight. Thought we played the game the way we needed to get the win, and now it's on to the next and a big opportunity next week in Tallahassee.
And again, that was head coach Mike Elco giving his post-game thoughts after the big 24-3 rally over the North Carolina State Wolfpack. It was the first time since 2013, fellas, that NC State had graced the halls of Wallace Wade Stadium. We were all there except for Jamie. He's still recovering from COVID. Jamie, hope you're getting better. But let's just jump right into it. Let's just talk about this. This was one of those games where we thought we knew going in what was going to happen. And then, as always, the coaching staff just blew us away with the performance. Henry Beelan, King Henry IV, great performance by him after that errant interception. But you know what? We'll talk about it all. Josh, you're back from the land of Mickey Mouse. First off, how was it? Secondly, your thoughts on NC State.
Yeah, had a great time down there with Mickey. Weather was beautiful. Got away with the family. Walked entirely too much. But yeah, had a great time. Really enjoyed the episode last week with Jordan. Thanks to Jordan Mann for coming on to my place. And then also enjoyed you guys sitting down with Kevin Johns with the Durham Devils Club as well on Thursday night. Was able to watch that back afterwards as well. But yeah, my thoughts on the game Saturday. So a couple of things. First of all, I was obviously, hoping that Riley was going to play. And hopeful for that. But then, the closer we got to game time, started hearing that it wasn't going to happen, which is fine. Henry came in, I thought, and played a great game. We're going to probably talk about that in a little bit with some of the questions that you have. I thought Henry managed the game. One of the things that I thought was interesting is, if you would have asked anybody before the game, they're going to say, okay, if Henry plays, we're literally going to just run the ball down their throats. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, but they're going to be ready for that. And so we're going to have to do some other stuff. Well, turns out we really just ran the ball down their throat. Like, they're a good defense, not a great defense. They're good, but we ran the ball down their throat. I thought that was awesome. And then we did find out that we were not just down Riley. We were also down Nicky Dalmolin. Jeremiah Lewis also did not play in this game. And so Terry Moore stepped in his spot, and then Jeremiah Hazley at tight end, which we'll talk about him in a little bit as well. Thought those guys did great. And then, of course, I couldn't start the pod without mentioning my guy, Todd Polino, bouncing back. In case you were wondering if that Notre Dame got to his head, drops a 52-yarder in this game. He's back on track and ready to roll. So shout out to Todd.
Before we continue, fellas, I just want to throw this out there. We're calling an audible tonight. We typically give our reaction, go into an interview, then we go into our mailbag. Well, we had promised EJ Manuel. Unfortunately, due to scheduling circumstances, we couldn't get him on. So we're going to have a double dose.
EJ Manuel, boo.
I mean, it's Florida State week. He might not have wanted to come on and talk.
3 cheers for Eric McLean, none for EJ Manuel.
And if you didn't see it, folks, Big E repped the Section 17 brand
Yes,
during
he
one of the
did.
segments on Friday. It was Friday, correct?
The 3-point
They
shootout there in Cameron.
perfect. Yeah, exactly. And of course, Big E won. Why wouldn't he? But anyway, we are going to have two mailbag segments tonight. We're going to have a mailbag segment for the state reaction. And then, of course, we'll have our mailbag segment for FSU. Scott, Jamie, I'm sorry I interrupted. Your reaction to the game.
No, I mean, it was at first when the game started after Henry had made that pick threw the pick and State got the football, it seemed like, okay, don't know what's going to happen. And then they go negative 2 yards and my man kicks a 57-yard field goal. So, hey, shout out to him. That dude, that powder keg, he's no Todd father, but he's got a nice leg on him. So, then Todd comes out there and does the same thing, kicks a 52-yarder and actually, hits field goal extra points after we score touchdowns. It's even better. But, it was a total team effort to me. We're going to hit some of this in a little bit, but it seemed like in the second half, we kind of left everybody wanting for more. I think that was just the plan. Once, got up on them, the philosophy has been so far in Duke football and Mike Elco history is ground and pound. And if you can't stop it, then you can't stop it. And it was interesting to see where Wilson, he lined up a lot of times. He didn't blitz as much as he did in games past. But I think he also knew he was going to get chipped a lot. And I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. Whoever gets him next season in the NFL, you are getting ready to get a player. That kid is unbelievable. He would line up on the far right side, and they would run it to the far left, and he would still get over there in about 3 seconds and get in on the tackle. I mean, you just don't get that in college football. So that's my one praise. My man did a great job. Other than that, we hit MJ Morris, and that's something we're going – something else I'll mention later. But we got to MJ Morris and hurt him a couple times to the point where it almost looked like we were getting ready to take him out of the game because he was hurting so bad.
Yeah, of course I didn't get to go to the game. I hated not to be there with everyone, but I'm definitely feeling a lot better now. But yeah, I was just thinking maybe we could put a statue of Tyler Santucci outside of Carter Finley Stadium. Because isn't he considered like a founding father now, or like maybe
No
their
doubt.
daddy or something?
There's
But
Wallace Wade, Steve Spurrier, David Cutcliffe, and
Football.
Tyler Santucci.
yeah, I mean that was just a completely dominant defensive performance, and getting to watch it on TV is actually, I mean, watching from Section 17 is actually the best, of course. Shout out Chris McCurdy, I know that. Uh, but watching from Section 17 is the best. But watching it on TV, you get to see a little bit more than what you see from the stands. And I just saw dominance, just pure dominance on the line, pure dominance on the offensive line as well against a really good State defensive line, especially when Duke was able to start running the ball. There was a while there where it seemed like they weren't going to be able to even get hardly a yard running the ball, but then they kind of wore State down as it went on. Uh, that's just all I got to take from it. Just a dominant defensive performance, a good first start from Henry Beelan, controlled the game, did what we needed him to do.
Yeah, so I actually worked press this game, so I got a little bit of the on-field experience for this rivalry. It was good to see a bunch of the 2013 ACC Coastal champions, and saw Anthony Boone. Didn't talk to him because everyone was all together. So Ross Cockrell. It was good to just see some of the guys back. A lot of former players, not just the 2013 team, were there. And my God, the amount of recruits that came to this game. It wrapped
By the way,
around.
shout out Dave Harding came down from the top and was down there with the 2013 friend of the pod, Dave Harding down there.
Yep, I actually saw Dave up in the tower. Said shook his hand. It'd been a little whiles, but very gracious, and it was always good to see Dave and talk with him. But again, ton of recruits, guys. I'm talking it wrapped around from where Duke's team bench was to the end zone and all the way up to where State's bench was. That's how many people were there. Of course, family included. But regardless, one thing I will say, and again, we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but State traveled well. Credit where credit's due. There was probably 4 pockets of student sections of State students. Now, One thing that they obviously didn't learn from last year, that they certainly learned after the game, was you don't trash talk this team. There was a pocket of students right at the tunnel where all the players come out, and they were just jawing Dwayne Carter, going off on him. And there's a video, and I don't know the exact wording, but they were just basically they told Dwayne.
I know what it was.
Go ahead.
I saw the video. It's been shared, by the way. We shared it on our Twitter. I think it's got like 15,000 views or something right now. But the fan yells down, Riley's not going to save you tonight.
Yeah.
Or something. And Dwayne waits like 2 seconds, and all he says is, enjoy the show as they run out onto the field.
Yeah. So, again, great performance by Duke. The cowbell himself, Jordan Waters, had another amazing game, another touchdown. Guys, he's 5 touchdowns away, I think, from breaking the Duke rushing record in a season, and for touchdowns, and we've got 6 games left. It's going to happen. Hopefully, it happens in Chapel Hill College. Just a exclamation point, but you never know. So, kudos to Jordan Waters, Jalen Calhoun. Guys, he only had 1 reception, but it mattered the most. That juke he put on the state defender. I think the Durham police are still on the field trying to figure out what happened with that murder. That was ridiculous.
And you can't say that without saying Henry's deception.
Yes.
Like that dude, his RPO deception, his pump fake deception, even his snap cadence with his clap. He is really good at that, man. That was beautiful. You're exactly right.
Very, very, very well. I mean, he threw us off. Tyler was next to me, and he was a few seconds behind. Even the ABC cameraman was, because he faked everyone out. So kudos to him. I will say the most fight I saw out of state was actually in the stands. I went into section 17 near the end of the third quarter. There was a few inebriated state fans leaving because they were upset at the outcome, and they were wanting to fight some Duke fans. And that was the most spirit I'd seen in someone wearing a red and black shirt all night long. Now, cops were called, campus police were called. That's all I can say. I mean, there wasn't much on the field. And listen, state fans, players, just admit that you got beat. I know it's been a long time since these two teams have met. Take your medicine and let's move on. Now, we initially thought that this rivalry was going to be back for years to come, but obviously with the expansion coming next year, that could blow everything up. It could be another 10 years before we see state again. But to all these state fans that are just, well, this was why we lost and this is why y'all scored so many, just stop. You lost, move on, give us some credit. But like we've seen, fellas, no one gives this team credit where credit's due. I mean, sometimes the media still is saying, yeah, but when Duke defeats a team. So great night overall. Have some stats really quick for you guys. I know I always bring it to the table. Anyone want to guess the last time Duke's first 2 ACC opponents failed to score more than 10 points combined? When was the last time a Duke defense in their first 2 ACC games? Don't look it up. Take a guess.
Up from the email earlier.
Yeah. No. It's not an email. I found it.
I don't know.
2012.
I'll put it to you guys this way. None of us were born.
Okay.
None of us were born.
1939.
That was Jack Wallabot's freshman year. Wait. Scott, when were you born? I'm not trying to show your age. I'm being honest. I don't know.
It wasn't 39. I can tell you that. It was 76.
Okay. Fellas, 1971. Duke defeated UVA 28-0, and they actually lost to Clemson 3-0. So that team only gave up 3 points in the first 2 ACC games. First time that's happened. Mike Elco's 7-3 record to start his first 10 ACC games is the best conference start for a Duke coach since Bill Murray went 8-2 in the now defunct Southern Conference play in 1951 and 1952. Records are just going out the wayside with this coaching staff. Love it. Again, another great performance. Going to need that performance and more this weekend against FSU, but we'll get to that here in the next few minutes. So with that being said, we have our first mailbag, and it's NC State reaction related. So Jamie, go ahead and get us started. You fans wanted to get our reaction and thoughts even more on state, so we figured we'd do another mailbag. Jamie, go ahead.
One thing before we get started on the state questions, talking about Dwayne Carter. This team is full of elite trash talkers. Like, I mean,
Yes.
they just full of elite trash talkers, and I love it. I love it. And they were talking constantly. You could really, once again, there's something you can really see on the TV. There was a lot of jawing going on, but it's a fun team. This is a fun team. All right. So at Splash Obi, Tyler, he wants us our thoughts on King Henry's first career start.
King
Yeah,
Henry
Josh,
the
I know,
fourth.
Fourth.
Come
I
on,
know,
it's the
All hail.
lineage.
I know
Pinky up.
Josh had some thoughts on that. So
Yeah, all hail King Henry. So, let's go back through it. He ends up 4 for 12, which obviously that's not a good completion percentage. But let's go back through that. Well, overall, number one, he managed the game well. He did exactly what the coaching staff needed him to do. Aside from the interception, and Coach Elco spoke to that today in his press conference, it's about 50-50 on whether Coach knew what Henry saw. Coach also saw what Jordan Moore saw and why Jordan Moore cut the route off. He understood why Henry thought he wouldn't do that. So he's like, I don't really know who to blame that on. There's really no one to blame. In hindsight, you kind of wish Henry, if he was about to get hit, would have just thrown that out of bounds instead of throwing it up. But aside from that, it was like he needed that to kind of wake him up. And then you look at this. He threw at least 2 or 3 away on purpose. Like he was about to get hit. So you have the bad interception. That's an incompletion. 2 or 3, let's say 2, of him throwing it away. So that's 3 incompletions. And then you have 2 drops. And we won't even mention the players, but you had 2 legitimate drops. So those are 5 incompletions right there that are like, okay, those are good. Those are fine. And so if you add that in, he really probably missed 3 throws on the night of what he should have hit. And let me just say this to all these State fans out there, especially the Locked On Wolfpack podcast. I'll call you out on the pod tonight. Listen, we were beating NC State so bad that we shut our offense down at halftime. We called 1 pass play in the entire second half. 1 pass play. Your team was that bad. The Duke coaching staff literally said, we can just sit here on offense and turn around and hand the ball off, and NC State is not going to score. That is how bad that offense was. So, anyway, I digress. I thought Henry was great. I will tell you that I think Duke fans, I think the coaching staff, I think Henry himself would say because of that game. Now, should he? We don't know. Should he have to play this Saturday? Should he be called upon in any other game? I think this team has ultimate confidence in Henry Beelan.
I would say the one pass that we did throw, had it been caught, was a touchdown, because that was nobody in front of him but us. Anyway.
And look, I think Duke's in good hands moving forward with Henry Beelan. If Riley does decide to go pro after this year, even if he's able to come back for the Florida State game, which we hope he is. I mean, honestly, you would want Riley out there. But if Riley goes pro at the end of the year, I think Duke's in good hands with Henry Beelan. He looked the part Saturday night. All right, at PD Duke 85, Peter Dodge coming in. Speaking of the 4 completed passes, when was the last time Duke completed just 4 passes and won a game? My suspicion is that the event predated Peter Dodge and Jack Wallaball, which I gotta think that he's probably right on that.
I mean, yeah, Jamie, I that was one piece of research I failed to look at, and I did look at the question. So my apologies, Peter. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even gonna venture a guess with all the.
It's
I
gotta
mean,
be it's gotta be pre-forward pass, like
well,
right?
no, I mean there
Wait
were.
a minute.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
Not so fast, my friends.
I don't know if this was a win.
He's efforting.
Oh, I've got it. He's the first Blue Devil. Man, you guys got to read the media emails.
Shout out, Cat.
Henry's the first Blue Devil starter to complete 4 or fewer passes in a win since Mike Schneider did so against Georgia Tech in 2003. He was 3 of 9 for 79 yards.
I was going to say it was probably during the years from 95 to 2007 that happened. So
okay, there was a 2008 instance, but it was a loss.
Football.
Yeah, when I say who the quarterback was, Scott, I know you're gonna know why he only had two completions in the entire game. Zach Asak.
Oh,
Mr. Quarterback Draw.
Run the
was
ball
2 for 9 against Vatek. So,
I remember that because, in fact, he played for Thad, who got hurt the week before. That was the week after the state game, I do believe, where
Okay.
we went after Thad had the big game. He
Yep.
went up to Blacksburg, and next week it started emergency wise, and yeah,
There were Duke fans playing drinking games with that.
Yeah.
Zach Asak runs the ball, take a drink.
Yep.
At Drew Chesh wants to know some more about Jeremiah Hazley, who looked good in unfortunate circumstances. Nicky Dalmalin getting hurt during practice, but he looked really good out there.
Yeah. So if you don't know the story, he was a linebacker, recruited as a linebacker. He played both linebacker and tight end in high school, from the Pittsburgh area. And honestly, if you look at that linebacker room, for sure the top three are pretty solidified in Dorian Mosey, Trey Freeman, and Cam Dillon. And then Nick Morris Jr. had really solidified that fourth linebacker spot. So really the linebacker two deep was set. And so Coach Elco said that this wasn't a thing where Hazley came to them. They actually went to Jeremiah and were like, hey, listen, you see that where the depth chart is right now. If you want to have a more integral role in our team, here's where we think we could use you. And he agreed to it as at the end of camp. Like he switched his number. It may have been like the second game, even that or maybe it's the first game, but he switched his number right at the very end. And I mean, he immediately jumped to number 2 on the tight end depth chart. And then with, like you said, Jamie, with Nicky having the injury, stepped in. And I mean, he had 2 catches, 2 of the 4 completions from Henry were to him. A nice touchdown. So yeah, I mean, that's shout out to him. I think Duke has their tight end of the future right there in Jeremiah Hazley.
And to be the second string tight end like that quick after making the jump, that's pretty amazing. Brian, did you have anything to add?
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead, Josh.
jumping a upperclassman, and I'm not not to downgrade anybody, but I mean he did. So
And we met his family at the tailgate, right? Yeah. So, I mean, they're already in well with the Section 17 Hard Hat Guys tailgate. So it was good to meet with his family. But yeah, agreed. That's another room that the next man up mentality. And I mean, scored a touchdown. First game, really seeing a lot of action. So kudos to him.
All right. At Wallace Wade 24. Ask a hard hitting question that
The ghost of Wallace Wade.
it's actually Wallace Wade.
uh,
He's like, my friend Jack Wallabaugh would like to know.
we did meet his granddaughter that at the
We did.
at
Yes.
the DDC event. That was
I
pretty
actually
you
cool.
saw
know?
her the other night as we were
Yeah.
leaving. She passed us, but anyway, go ahead.
So I mean, I don't think this is her, but like I'm not sure. Why does the band play the other team's fight song pregame? And we have, trust me, we do not
Wallace,
want this to happen. We constantly we think Wallace Wade would even
I
turn
think
over in his
Wallace Wade
grave.
would roll in his grave knowing that. Maybe he's the one that started it. Look, we have beat this horse way too many times. All we can say is probably not going to change. It's not going to change. And we're sorry, but it's been going on since Jack Wallabaugh's freshman year, apparently. Jack, we love you if you're watching us. We're just joking. But don't know. We don't know why that tradition started, but it's apparently never going to end. Scott?
I think it started when we started doing this campaign of union together as teams, and then they did that one weekend, and Duke is the only team left that still does that stuff.
Yeah, it was like an ACC thing, wasn't it, Scott? Like one year they were like really big on like the sportsmanship thing.
Yeah, ACC Unify, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
Hey, 23 minutes in. Got him.
Jamie's gone. Jamie's gone. Group chat 1, Jamie 0.
Hey, there is one thing that's actually worse than playing the opponent's team fight song. Do y'all remember when we were so bad, like from that 1995 to 2007 era, when they used to play Wipeout in
Yes.
front of the opposing team fans, and then we get
Yeah.
beat 50 to nothing? It was terrible.
Memories.
So good.
All right, at Bleed Blue _24, and
What's
he's
with
coming
the
in hot.
24s? Are these students or graduates?
Possibly.
Yeah. Okay.
He's coming in hot with did NC State realize that Duke was far superior to them? Seems that if State didn't have any urgency and was giving up close to the end of the third quarter. They were taking the play clock all the way down. And I mean, honestly, once again on TV, you could see the fear in MJ Morris's eyes. Like the defense, they had him
Well,
at that point. There was
4 sacks, right? 4
right.
sacks on the night.
I'm
Well,
honestly surprised they didn't bring in Brennan Armstrong at some point
well
because he
here's
looked
the
like he was done.
I want to say here's the thing. They didn't start dialing up the blitzes until the third quarter. They never blitzed in the first quarter. When they got in the third quarter, they saw that he was they could get to him, and then they had somebody new each time. It was BJ usually, but somebody
Mhm.
hit him, and there were many times that it didn't look like he was getting up. And how he got up a couple times, I don't know.
Well, remember, we talked about this last week, guys. If you pressure MJ Morris, he was going to make a mistake.
Yep.
See the Trey Freeman interception.
Yep.
Scott, I think you even said if we pressure him enough, there's going to be an interception or two in that game. And wouldn't you know it, we pressured him, interception.
Yeah, no, for sure. And here's I think what my frustration is with NC State and just the whole. It's not just the fan base because it's the players too. If you guys saw the clip from MJ Morris's post
Yep.
game, I mean, they can't even just go in there and like say, "Yeah, we got our butt kicked." He's got to say like, "They didn't beat us, we beat ourselves." No, bro, you got your butt kicked. Like, if Riley Leonard's playing, or even if Kevin Johns decides to continue calling the offense from the first half, you lose this game 42-3. So like, I don't know, man. I just think there's some like very much delusional stuff going on over there in Raleigh, and yeah, they're in trouble. All I can say is for my state friends, we picked you guys 8th in the ACC, and that was way too high.
Hey, that seat is hot over there too. All the state fans now, that seat is getting hotter for Mr. Doran.
All right. At Big Papa RV, thought
Big
this was
Papa
a
Pump.
thought this was a good question. Why are we in the shotgun formation on 3rd and inches? Haven't analytics proven that under center QB sneak is the best play call in that situation? Now, I don't know anything about analytics. I don't want Coach Elko calling me out again.
Well, let's welcome in Kevin Johns, offensive. No. Yeah, that I have no
I
answer
mean,
to it. I don't
it's
think
a great
any of us
question.
do.
Like,
It is.
I,
If you subscribe to the Durham Devils Club, $25 a month, you yourself can get on a Zoom call with Kevin Johns, probably. Kevin Santucci coming soon. Just throwing that out there.
Tyler
Yeah,
sent you.
Tyler, sorry, not Kevin. I don't, guys, again, I am perfect for the season. I'm horrible with names. My apology. Tyler Santucci.
No,
But yeah,
here's what I'd say. My thing about going in shotgun, if on 3rd or 4th and short, is if you're gonna do it to like Tim Tebow it, I'm okay. Like
Yeah.
if you're going and you're gonna power it with your quarterback, and you're gonna just run it in, and maybe your running back's gonna get behind them and do like the butt push or whatever they do,
Bush push.
the bush put.
I'm
Pause.
to Matt
Um,
Line to
edit.
Matt Liner.
it's the tush push.
Yeah,
I think it's a tush push.
No, it's the Bush
Oh
push
my god.
from Matt Liner when Reggie Bush pushed him
Oh, the
up
Bush
at Notre
push.
Dame
Okay, I get that.
to win the game.
Tyler, you're welcome. This is
Oh,
going to be a
boy.
fun edit this week.
God almighty.
Man, I got to mute on that one. But no, as long as you're lining up to do that on 3rd or 4th and 1, I'm fine. What I don't like on 3rd and 4th and 1 is like the RPO feel. You know what I mean? Where the running back doesn't get like downhill quickly and he's trying to find a hole. Like to me, that's where you get yourself in trouble. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I would love for us to go under center, especially with Henry, and just fall forward. You know what I mean? You're
And I
going to
mean,
get your yard. So
honestly, you got Jordan Waters too. So like, line it up under center, do a old HB dive, and you should be able to get those few inches.
But
But
for the record, also though, Duke is not the only team that does this. It happens all over America every Saturday, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Happens in the NFL.
it happens on Sundays. I was
It
gonna say,
happens
yeah.
all the time. So there's the analytics for a reason.
All right, at A Emery 1116. How much did the offensive play calling change with Beelan versus Leonard? Anybody notice? But I didn't really notice.
I
too much.
mean, without disclosing like what some like people inside the program maybe have told us, I believe they knew in the entire week that it was going to be Henry. I think we saw more 2 tight end, which I think they call that 12. That's in football. You can tell I didn't play football. But like 2 tight end, 2 wide receiver sets. You saw a little bit more of that. And so, yeah, I do believe they were, that was a little bit of a change. And certainly you're not going to give Henry the leash that you give Riley. I mean, you're not gonna put him in the situations that you put Riley in, not in his first ACC start. So I'm sure, and I don't know, I can't point to specifics other than that. A lot more 2 tight end sets.
And before we get any questions, Riley's day to day per Mike Elko's press conference today.
Exactly. Some national media guy was there. He's the one who asked that question. Like all the local media was like, "We're not even going to ask him." Like, but he did. So
Well, plus
he
too,
literally looks at him and goes, "Yeah, I got an update. He's day to day."
That leads me to my
well, I was
my
gonna say
next
plus
question.
2 on that though. You also don't put a lot of tape out there of Henry running the offense for Florida State, who has very little tape on Henry as it is, if he happens to be the quarterback Saturday night.
That leads me to my next question. At Dustin 06855408. It's a lot of a lot of numbers. How close was Riley to playing last night? And I don't think he was ever gonna play. I said this earlier in the week on social media that I thought it was more gamesmanship, just trying to keep State guessing. I mean, and maybe there was a chance that he played if Coach Elko did mention. They mentioned on the pregame that Coach Elko had told them that he needed to see Riley be able to push off that ankle. He
Right.
needed to see Riley to be able to change directions. Like he does. He needed to see Riley being Riley, and Riley didn't show that. So therefore, we got Henry.
In the video that Tyler got of them walking to the coin toss, he did actually have a little gimp in his walk, and maybe he was testing it out because he was throwing the ball, running, not running, but sprinting to catch the football. I think he was just trying to show people like I'm here, I'll be back soon, don't worry. But then noticed a little bit of a limp going to
I
the coin
noticed that
toss.
too.
Yeah,
There's no boot, but I noticed a little limp. I mean, for what
it
it's worth,
happens with a high ankle sprain.
I'm not a doctor.
You
Yeah,
just
you,
stayed at
you
a
know,
Holiday Inn.
that's
Yeah.
right. I'll say he's
Uh,
practicing his moves just in case he decides he wants to play tight end instead of quarterback.
Yeah.
He was
He's
making
got some
catches on
hands
the
on
end
him.
zone and stuff.
Yeah, no, I think about that though. I mean, if this past Saturday's game, NC State would have been the last game of the season, and the ACC going to ACC championship game was on the line, do I think Riley could have played? Absolutely. I think he could have. I think at the end of the day, they made that call early in the week that, hey, we're not going to risk this. We think we can beat NC State without Riley. And we went out and did it. So I do, if you told me, and we know nothing, well, legitimately, we're not just, we don't know anything. And listen, Elko isn't going to leak it. And I don't know how Pete Thamel gets his information, but it's not from Mike Elko. Um, but like I do, if you ask me to put money on it, I would put money that he plays this Saturday. But you never know.
Jamie.
I was trying to get the mute button undone. All right, I'm just gonna go with one more question from State because the last couple were kind of the same stuff we've already discussed. But Tyler Lester had a good question off of Facebook. He said, "Is Terry Moore the most unappreciated player on the roster?" And boy, did he had a nice game Saturday
Yes,
night,
he did.
stepping in for Jeremiah.
Yeah, I say he blitzed on the second play and was in the backfield and made his first tackle. And from that moment on, it was almost every pile either had him or Freeman coming out of the bottom of it from where they were
Yeah.
making tackles and were there for everything. So I think the more he's played, the more confident he's gotten. And, he's an athletic kid anyway. Obviously, we saw that last year as a running back. But he's learning the job, and he did a really good job Saturday night.
Terry Moore, 7 total tackles, half sack, and 1/2 tackle for loss. That's a pretty good
Yeah.
stat line. All in.
There was the one play too in the first half where I believe it was the tight end for NC State on a crossing route, and it may have been close to the end zone if I'm not mistaken. But it was definitely on a sustained drive, and it looked like he had it. And Terry Moore just came up behind and got his right arm in and knocked the ball away. It was a great pass block up, so pass break up. So yeah, I mean honestly, you take a guy like that who, if we're honest, the first couple of games of the year, you could tell he was still trying to get his feet underneath him at safety. After playing it in high school, but playing running back, at Duke for the first year. But I think now he's fully up to speed, and it is nice to know that you've got 3 guys back there that can play those 2 spots. And so if one guy happens to not be where he needs to be, we've got a rotation. So, yeah. All right, cool. So that is all for our NC State mailbag. And like I said, shout out to EJ Manuel. We're just giving you a hard time, buddy. Actually, we would be talking to him right now, but we're not, and it's okay. But we appreciate you guys giving us questions. We're going to take some Florida State ones here in just a minute. But before we do that, we are going to have our segment that we do each week, going back in Duke football history with our guy, the big dog, the guy who got to meet the people who saved his life from Duke Life Flight. Got his picture taken with him. Got a little badge, a little "I survived." I survived. Duke.
They were actually coming by to collect on their bill.
Yeah, on their bill. Shout out to Durham for saving Scott's life and sending him a bill for a few $100.
Yes.
But anyway, this is This Week in Duke football history with our guy Scott Medlin. Scott, take it away.
So for This Week in Duke football history, we're going to go back to October 21st, 1950. Back when Peter and Jack were both freshmen, I think for the 3rd time. Quarterback Tom Powers would set the all-time Duke record for most touchdowns and points in a single game, playing on the road against the Richmond Spiders. Powers would score 36 of the 41 points Duke would score that day. The 6th touchdown Powers would score, along with the 36 points, are both records still today in the Duke record books. Powers would go on to play in the NFL for the Washington, back then Redskins, and would later work at the Department of Labor under the Kennedy administration. And that was This Week in Duke football history, brought to you by Bull City Sheet Metal. No matter what your duck needs, if air goes through it, they make it. Give them a call at 919-354-0993 or visit bullcitysheetmetal.com.
Oh, so Uncle Robert had Tom Powers on his staff, or was it Uncle John? Do we know? Does it say?
It didn't say which one.
Wait, what was the years again?
50, I thought.
So he played in 50. It had to have been Uncle John Kennedy, 35th president of the United States.
Now,
Rest
Brian,
in peace.
do you think there was just one shooter, or I'm just kidding? We won't
Oh gosh, the Wallace Wade sniper was not in Dallas that day. God.
I love it.
Oh, but let's not go down that rabbit hole.
And he was there when State had the ball on offense Saturday night.
Oh,
Yes.
all right. So that was This Week in Duke football history. It's always enjoyable to go back in time and relive some awesome moments. But now we're shifting over to this week.
Hey,
Josh?
Brian.
Yes.
Before we shift over,
all right.
I would like to mention the Durham Devils Club. Real quick, Durham Devils
Sounds
Club.
good.
We partner with Durham Devils Club. This past week, if you weren't on the Zoom call, you missed out because Brian and Jamie and Scott got to sit down with offensive coordinator Kevin Johns for an exclusive behind-the-scenes Q&A that Trinity Club members and above at the Durham Devils Club were able to ask their questions, interact with Coach Johns. I mean, during the middle of the season, that's pretty cool. A game week, they were able to ask a ton of questions. He was super open. But Durham Devils Club is the NIL arm of Duke, and so we want to encourage you to be a part of that, whether you would be a high-level donor or whether you would just be somebody like $25 a month. That'll get you our content through the Durham Devils Club. And so we want to encourage you to do that. And then if you are watching this, I'm going to go ahead and do this before. I usually do it at the end. But if you're watching this on YouTube, would you subscribe? Make sure you subscribe. I think we're at like 350. And we want to keep this thing rolling. We want to get to 1,000 as quickly as we could. So subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this on Apple, would you leave us a rating and a review? The written reviews are very important if we've earned a 5-star. If we haven't earned a 5-star, just don't leave us a review. It's all good. But 5-star reviews, Spotify, 5-star reviews. Obviously, like us on Facebook, Duke Football Talk. You can search that group. And then Duke FB Talk, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you call it. DukeFootballTalk.com. I think I've got all of it out. But we really do appreciate you guys listening. We try to bring you good content. We put a lot of energy and effort into what we do, guys, and time. And so we really appreciate it. What best thing you can do for us is give us a 5-star rating and review. We really appreciate it. That's enough for my commercial.
Yeah, brought to you by. Yes, and as I stated earlier, we will be speaking with defensive coordinator Tyler Santucci in the coming weeks. I think I said Kevin because I had Kevin Johns on my mind when we interviewed him
Hey,
last week.
we'll give him a player tease too. Player tease
Hey,
coming up. True freshman.
there's a certain running back that we're going to
Yeah.
be speaking with. Josh
Mis-
kind of gave it away just now,
Mr.
but
True Freshman. You heard about him. You saw him in the spring game. You heard a lot about him in the summer fall camp. You haven't seen a ton of him yet. You see him on some kick returns. He's going to break loose, and you'll hear from him exclusively behind the scenes, DurhamDevilsClub.com only.
And
all right.
let me tell you, man, Kevin Johns was awesome too. That was just a great interview.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. His son kind of snuck in at the last minute to ask him a question. That is the only thing we're going to tell you about the interview. So that was fun to get a sneak attack by Logan. We had a great time. But we got to move on, fellas. It's FSU week. 7:30 ABC Saturday night. A big matchup in Tallahassee. Josh and Scott will both be driving down south to Tallahassee to see the game in person. That is a once in a lifetime experience, fellas. I hope you enjoy it. But now we've got to get to our second mailbag segment, this time talking all things Florida State. So, Jamie, go ahead and get us rolling with the first question.
Second mailbag segment. Do I get overtime pay for this or?
What's 0 times
Okay.
0?
You get
Yeah.
double. No, 0 times 2. We'll give him double.
Yeah. Okay.
Give
Yeah.
me double.
0 times 2.
You can take the intern's pay.
You get the Jethro Bodine math. Naught plus naught equals naught.
All right, we got our first one is an email submission from Ed, who is class of Duke 1979. So shout out to Ed. He said first he wants to thank us for our podcast. He, as a Duke grad and someone who first started attending Duke football games with his dad, who graduated from Duke in 1943, when he was 8 years old, he appreciates our dedication and enthusiasm and insights. Um, his first question, he had a couple of questions. His first questions, as he watched the games and reviewed the depth chart, the skill at least two deep is impressive. The two lines and the secondary jump out at as examples for him, not to mention the running backs. He said, is Coleman going to play this year? We haven't been seeing much of Coleman ever since he was injured, and it's just hard to get up that depth chart now.
I mean, I don't know. Like Josh said earlier, we don't have any ends with the team. It just I don't know if it's just Jordan's been playing so great and Jacquez was right behind him, or if he's still having that lingering injury. We don't know. We all thought coming into the season it would be Jalen and Jacquez with a mix in of Jordan as the cowbell. But yeah, that has been something that we've noticed too. Jalen's a great running back. He showed his power and his speed last year. We have no idea. We're not a part of the meetings. I just think that room's so good that it's going to be hard to get whoever's playing off the field, barring, I mean, knock on wood, like Scott did last week, an injury or something like that.
I mean, I hate to keep pushing back to this, but if you were a DDC member, Kevin John spoke a little bit to this this past Thursday. Coach Elco was actually asked about him today as well on Monday in the presser. And his thing was, he says Jalen is back from his injury. He's ready to go. But he said when you have Jordan and Jacquez, by the way, Jacquez probably had his best game of the season, or it seemed like he got his mojo back in the state game. When those two guys are running so good, who are you going to take out? Like, whose snaps is he going to take? And, it's a good problem to have. So I'm not concerned about Jalen Coleman. I believe, as this team has shown, the next man up mentality, if his number's called, he's going to be ready. But right now, you can't put four running backs in the backfield and hand the ball off to all four of them. It just doesn't work.
All right, he has another, and this is getting into the discussion about the home attendance. And he says, I get the discussion about the home attendance, but instead to choose to focus on the positive. They buy season tickets. They have a family group and an alum group that sit together in Section 29. And like us, he supports the team with being at games. But a few years ago, he reviewed attendance figures going back to the 1960s. He even looked up into the 1940s. And in most years, a good crowd was 25 to 30K, with the occasional larger crowd for important games. And he did compile those numbers and he sent them to us. And Brian might want to speak to some of those.
Listen, I was so giddy. Y'all know I'm all about facts and stats and numbers. My man Ed, he came in with the heat. Folks, we're not going to go down the negative trail. We know the whole talk. It's been like this forever about home attendance. Let me put some things into perspective for you because Ed came with the heat. So folks, we talked about the 1938 team a couple of times. That was the year that the Duke team didn't get scored on at all the entire season. Now, again, 1938, I get it. Ed even prefaces by saying that Durham had not blossomed to the population that it was. They had crowds of 30,000, 15,000, and 49,000 against Pitt. Pretty impressive. That was additional stands probably brought in. The 1960 Cotton Bowl season, crowds of 28,000 against State, 33,000 against Clemson, 40 against Georgia Tech, and 46,000 against Navy. But that was back when Navy was a powerhouse. Again, multiple stands brought in. What am I getting at here? Simply this. This has always happened with Duke football. Be appreciative of what you have. You know the saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone. To the fans that are complaining, yes, we get it, but you know what? As I just stated, since 1938, from Ed's research, this has always happened. So what's the easiest way that you can put the naysayers to bed? Show up if you can. Like Scott said last week, we understand. You got kids. It's a primetime game. Hard to get out. You're sick like Jamie was. He's not going to come out and jeopardize people's health. We get that. I'm just going to throw this out there. November 2nd, 7:30, Wake Forest. There's not going to be any tailgating because it is a school day for the university. Gates open at 5. Get there, get in the stadium, enjoy the second to last home game of the season because this team could potentially be what? 9 and no. We're 5-1 now. Could be 7-1, maybe 8-1, I believe. 7-1 going into that game. And we have not seen a 7-1 Duke team that late in the season since I don't even remember. I don't even think the 13 team was at that point. So it's been a while. But Ed, thank you so much. If you want to keep sending weekly emails with all the stats and facts, we would love it. We will put it out there if it's pertaining to our opponent or pertaining to the weekly episode. Just folks, enjoy the ride. That's all I can say. I think we all agree on that. And come if you can.
Yeah, if I can say this too, Brian mentioned the next home game's a Thursday night game. Go ahead and take the day off work Friday if you have time to
Yes.
take off work. Look, man, this is me, y'all. I'm not a parenting guru or anything. Like, bring your kids if your kids want to come, and like, hey, you take them to school an hour late, Friday or something. Like, they'll be fine. I promise you, they'll make it. But understand that. And then the second thing Brian, you mentioned about doing what you can do, and I think at the end of the day, that's really it. And you got to understand, there's so many things working against Duke with attendance, and they're all legitimate. There's a reason why the same things continue to be brought up about the attendance. It's because they're legitimate. And listen, don't be so naive. Cameron Indoor Stadium seats 9,300 people, and Duke basketball has a hard time filling up 9,300 seats legitimately. They have sold them. What actually butts in those seats, go to most every game that's not a high level ACC game, and you're going to find empty seats throughout Cameron. So, like, it just is what it is, and it's okay. Duke recruiting, I promise you this. Derek Miller and the recruiting staff at Duke do not sit there and tell these guys, hey, if you come to Duke, you're going to play in front of sold out Wallace Wade Stadium every week. They don't tell those guys that. They come to Duke for other reasons. I don't believe in any way the attendance hurts recruiting because Duke doesn't use that as a selling point. So, like, come if you can, support the team. Obviously, come more than you're coming right now, but I'm not going to make anybody feel terrible.
Yeah, and because I've been on the hill for the last 3 weeks, let me go ahead and just come down a little bit. Obviously, after
Let it
hearing,
rip, Tater Chip.
honestly though, after hearing the numbers from what Ed said, it makes total sense. And I understand again, I'm not going to dog anybody. I'm not going to give you a hard time. I'm not trying to split up the whole fan base here. If you can come, that's what we need. If you can't, support from home, watch TV, help those numbers. Because look, those numbers when we're on national TV at 7:30 at night, at 8 o'clock at night, are huge. Duke has two. If you took Colorado's season out of this, Duke would be two of the top 5 to 6 games of the season so far with Clemson and Notre Dame. That's a huge thing. So if Prime wasn't doing what he was doing out there, losing games after being up 29-0 at halftime at midnight, then it would be totally different.
Yeah, I got an interesting stat for you, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but if you count game day, college game day, Notre Dame game, and the Clemson game, if you just add the viewership of those 3 events up, that's more viewers than Duke football had the entire season last year, including the bowl game.
And look,
And
Just those 3 events.
Duke is a name brand. I mean, Duke is going to draw eyes. Like if Duke football continues to win, Duke football will continue to draw eyes on TV. It's still Wallace Wade is still going to be the same old, I'm afraid. But on TV, they will draw numbers.
And going back really quick, and we'll put a pin in this one, I really thought social media might have had an influence on the lower numbers in recent years, because you can access a game on something like this in the comfort of your home or wherever you're at. But as we see with Ed's numbers, this is just something that has happened since Wallace Wade has been open. So again, best thing you can do, if at all possible, get your wife, get your kids, get grandma and granddad, come to the game if you can.
All right. We're moving on to Facebook. And Michael Martino with the question of, could Duke beat the Carolina Panthers? I mean, as long as Riley's starting, yes. Yeah. I think if Riley starts, Duke wins 38-10. Carolina scores 10 points.
I wouldn't give Denver 10. I don't know if Denver could score 3 against Duke.
Hey,
maybe they should play State.
Scott, are you preparing for the Drake May show to come to Denver?
I've never heard of her. Who is I already don't like the one quarterback they have. Do you really think I'm going to like that other bum?
Broncos Nation, let's ride.
Yeah, I'm going to have to find a new team.
Chris McCurdy. Is Jordan Waters the most underrated or at least talked about running back in the country? That's a great question.
Yes.
I mean, I think the one thing he's missing, and this is okay, is the yardage count. But I mean, he helped himself this past week with 123 or something.
123 on 13 carries.
Yeah, but his touchdown count is it's ridiculous, man. And like, y'all listen, we can be honest on here. We are trying not to be critical of players ever. But I'm willing to say this now. Last year we would get very frustrated with Jordan Waters because it felt like he was tiptoeing in the backfield a lot, like trying to wait for the hole to open up, and he just wasn't getting north to south. And he's a north-south runner. And so he'd find himself, behind the line of scrimmage, or he'd find himself, with a 1-yard gain. And this year, it's like my man is possessed in a good way. He's finding his lanes. I mean, that run, listen, we already said that Duke called one pass play in the entire second half. So they knew the run was coming, and he still broke the 83-yarder. So, my man is legit.
Well, just like with you and Todd, Jordan has become my favorite this year so far. Let me put things into perspective for you. He only had 566 yards last year. Now, granted, you had Jalen, you had Jaquez. It was more of a 3-headed monster.
Terry.
And Terry, too. Yeah, thanks. So 566 yards. He is only 140 yards off of that mark halfway through the season. He's already surpassed his touchdown number. He had 8 last year. He's got 9 this year. He's averaging 6.5 yards a carry. Last year it was 4.5. So whatever he did in the offseason, whatever David Feely fed him in the offseason, keep feeding that boy whatever it is, because the cowbell is running loose.
And while the 83-yard touchdown run was awesome, and he was just completely untouched, my favorite run of the night was, I think it was about a 15 to 17-yard run. And towards the end, he run over
that dude.
A dude from State. And I was like, Jordan Waters just killed a guy.
Memories of the Charlotte game.
Yeah.
We
trust him. But, according to State fans, if those plays didn't happen, State wins the game. Like, if Michael Jordan didn't win six NBA championships, he'd have 0. Like, it's crazy. But if Jordan Waters hadn't trucked that guy, he wouldn't have gotten to 15 yards. So, according to State fans.
Speaking of Chris, since he's the one that asked the question, he had a great video of the run from sitting up in 17, and that's why we kind of started the whole view from 17 being great. You had 2 great views if you think about it. You had that, and then the beautiful pass for Beelan to Calhoun to start the game. And then the third one that hurt the most was when Papa Dylan said that Jalen was going to run that punt back for a touchdown, and then he did it, and we're all celebrating, and nobody saw the flag except for
What
the guy that
hurts the
threw it.
most?
All
It's
right,
kind of like the Carolina game all over again with the only
Jamie,
person
why
that
are you
stands
trying to
guy.
stop me
Dang,
from
Jamie.
singing?
Usually I'm the one that's like, how many questions we got
Bro.
left? He's like, all right, moving on.
I'm trying to sing a song because Scott's talking about what hurts the most.
it's
By the
10
way, I think
it's
it's
10:05 local time in Holden Beach.
I think it was who was it? Bergeron potentially they got that hold, and so we were talking to Jalen. Jalen said he's going to owe a mistake. So
Speaking of steaks, Jordan, if I win the season predictions, you can come out with us for my steak dinner. Just
That's
throwing it
right.
out there.
That's right.
Jonathan Huggins on Facebook. All right, here we go with our FSU question here. What does Duke need to do to beat FSU? And my answer to that is yes. Just I don't. It's going to be tough. I mean, FSU in Tallahassee. Duke has never beaten FSU.
Homecoming.
This is a 7:30 night game. Homecoming. It's going to be tough. I mean, Jordan Travis is playing lights out. Another stat I saw on TV, and then I'll let y'all jump into it. I was watching all the pre games. I'm able to see all these stats instead of being at the stadium. But FSU has now 12 straight games of 30 plus points, and that is like the second longest streak in ACC history. So something's going to have to give. Duke's got a defense only giving up 11.2 points per game.
Uh,
It's gonna be some smash mouth football.
yeah, so it's funny. I actually I've looked at this up. FSU's averaging 42 points a game. Duke's averaging 32 points a game. On the flip side, FSU's defense is only giving up 18 points a game. And Duke, I think it updated, Jamie, he's only given up eight and a half, let's just say 8 points a game. So we're either going to have a defensive battle or we could have a shootout, fellas. One or the other. I just don't see one team dominating the other, even with it being FSU, being homecoming. I think the defense up to the challenge. Hopefully the offense will too.
Here's my thought process. If you hit Jordan Travis, he's going to get hurt. That's what they did to MJ Morris the other night. If they blitz, like I'm assuming they probably will, and put the DBs, Blades and Chandler and Miles on an island against these big boys, these 6'5", 6'6" boys, and the tight end too. I really think there's a chance if you can get to Jordan Travis, you hurt him. Now, I'm not saying we're trying to hurt him. I'm just saying if you hit him, there's a chance that he's going to get hurt like he does every game. And who knows, it may be something that by the time he gets to the Duke game, it just messes up everything.
All right. Next up, Nathaniel Miller on Facebook. Is there any way Duke plays both quarterbacks against Florida State? Riley is really good at running and making the short passes, and Henry is great with long distance passes. We did see the arm. Could we see Henry in a few snaps, maybe, even if Riley is healthy? And shout out to at MD Games 5 on Twitter because he has something very similar.
I mean, do I think that we could run a wrinkle where they're both in the game at the same time and Riley maybe goes in motion and Henry almost runs like a wildcat? Like I think that could happen. I was actually it's funny the question because I was going through this in my head today. There would be a chance if we did something like that, if Jomo was on the field too, we could have 3 legitimate guys that could make the pass as a quarterback on the field. So I don't know. I mean, if you're going to bring something crazy out like that, Florida State game is probably the game to do it. But if you're asking me, do I think they're going to have certain series for Henry compared to Riley? I don't know. I think if Riley can go 100% of the time, he's going to go 100% of the time. So I don't think they're going to do it just to do it. I think if Riley needs the breather, then obviously Henry could come in, but I don't think they're going to build it in.
I don't think we've seen much trickeration at all. So, just saying.
All right. Regina Lee, she said she was really encouraged hearing our interactions with the team before the Clemson game. You shared the team was locked in and prepping at a very high level. So now she wants to share anything we can about the team's prep for FSU as well as their prep in general for all games. She says, please talk about mood, confidence, adaptability, mental prep, game prep, etc. Anything you can.
Yeah, I mean, so what we had. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that was a loaded question,
Yeah.
Regina. As always, thank you.
Yeah, Regina's incredible. I appreciate her being like a loyal listener. What we had back then was we had a little bit more access because we were able to be at practices leading up to the Clemson. Well, not leading up to the game, but probably 2 weeks out. And so, but now we get to we're there for Coach Elko's pressers, and that's really about it. But I will say this: just judging from the people we speak to inside the program, connected to the players, this team has got an odd sense of like confidence but humility. Like it's kind of a unique balance that they're striking. They're not too high on themselves, which honestly, you're sitting here 5-1, ranked 16th, the highest that the program's been ranked since 1994, or maybe it surpassed that even this week. But the arrogance could be there. I don't believe this team's arrogant, but this team is very confident. And in case they weren't confident, they went in Saturday night and dominated NC State without their starting quarterback. So I think, all that to say, if you ask Coach Elko those questions, he says we prepare for every game the exact same way. There's nothing special about one game over the other. Do I think there could be some like fatigue, honestly, from like the 7:30 ABC primetime games? The one we had at Clemson, obviously not Saturday, but Labor Day, and now there's two of those, and there's the potential of the Louisville game being one as well. I mean, I think you could get a little bit of fatigue from just being on the main stage, but I think Coach Elko is going to do everything he can to fight against that.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Moving on to Twitter.
Are you sure you agree?
Yeah, sure. I absolutely agree. At Sam B. Andrews 1234. Of the FSU, Louisville, and UNC games, what is a realistic record to go in those games, and what should be our expectations? I mean, to me, our expectations are already. Coach Elko has got it to the point where our expectations are we're going to win those games. I mean, that's what he's brought to the table, right? For this Duke football team. Realistically, could we go 3-0? Yeah. I mean, this team could go 3-0. The team could also go 1-2 because those are tough games. Uh, I mean, you could lose all three. I mean, I don't know, but I think you can win all three of those games. No problem. I mean,
That was the most
not no
political.
problem, but
That was the most political answer you could have given. Well, we could be 3-0, we could be 1-2, we could be 0-3.
please vote for me.
Yes, Jamie.
2024.
The only one he left out was 2-1, so I guess we can't go 2-1.
I'll put it to you this way, and we've talked about it before. This team has not played Florida State since, oh my gosh, tell the tape's coming up soon, so I'll tell you then. Yeah, almost. Florida State, I think, is just going to be another chip on the shoulder game. No one's giving us a chance. We're going to go down to Florida State, and we should win the game. Louisville, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. They're thinking back to that 2021 game, just like the four of us, because I think we were the only four in the stadium when the blowout was happening. But the majority of the guys on this team were part of that game. They have a chip on their shoulder for that game. And folks, we all know what happened last year in Wallace Wade against UNC. The victory bell should be in the O Center right now. But it is what it is. I saw the victory bell this weekend, and I kept telling folks around me, ring it as much as you can, because come November 11th, it's coming home. All three games are winnable, to Jamie's point. I'm going to sound political, but these are very well-tuned teams, as much as I hate to say it, even UNC. But go ahead, Scott.
No, I would say this. Going into games in the past, like Notre Dame, the mindset personally, obviously that the years of everything that's ever happened, just the stress and the things of, oh my goodness, what could go wrong? Even when we were down against Notre Dame, I never had a doubt in my mind that we could not win that game because of what Coach Elko and Feely and Johns and Santucci and all these guys have been doing for the last almost 2 years. So I think they have the ultimate confidence, and they'll go out there and play their best game. Now, if Florida State, Carolina, or Louisville is better that night, then so be it. You tip your cap, unlike the State fans did. You say, "Great job, you guys won. Congrats." But other than that, man, I think you got to go in the mindset you go 3-0, but you do like they always say, one game at a time. Let's go beat FSU Saturday night and go beat Louisville next week.
All right. At sit UN at sit NUOK.
Sitting you okay?
That's Will. We've met him before. He just has more of a comment than a question. Next weekend would be a great time to notch our first win versus FSU. With their bluster about an ACC exit, we need to give them a parting gift to remember us by. And I'll move on to at LA Dodgers all day. And this is for Brian. Quite simple this week for me is, where will Brian be enjoying his steak? Because Waters is quite literally running away with the touchdowns.
And again, that's apparently the only category that I'm looking good at. I updated the prediction sheets today. Of course, Jamie's up a point on the rest of us because of the Clemson win. So I got to give credit where credit's due. But as far as the other categories, it's a turkey shoot. It's a crab shoot. Yeah, it's a turkey shoot. Look, it's 10:15 to Jamie's point. We're still recording.
You mean I'm going for a three-peat? Oh, my. Wow. If I get a three-peat, y'all will never that's.
Yeah, we're going to have an episode.
Hard to come back from.
Jamie's no longer with us on the Section 17 podcast.
All right. At TS Lester _. FSU is obviously the most explosive team we've played so far. I think so far our biggest hole on offense has been just lack of explosive plays in the pass game, but Beelan opens up a new dimension. Are we concerned any about our wide receivers getting space against the FSU DBs?
Sure. I mean, they're good. I'm concerned about that. This is going to be probably, Coach Elco said today, it's definitely the fastest defensive line that we faced. It's probably going to be the fastest defense as a whole that we're going to face. And so, I'm concerned about that. Listen, go ahead and get people ready now. You're not going to see deep shots probably against this team. You're going to see the short intermediate passes. You're going to see run game. You're going to see field position battle. You're gonna need Porter Wilson to stretch and to get some punts inside the 10. So, at the end of the day, like these teams like Notre Dame, Clemson, and Florida State, the athleticism they possess requires Duke to play a certain way. And so I just would expect it. It just is what it is.
All right. I'm gonna just do one more off of Twitter since we're heading long here, and Brian still has to do the tail of the tape, and we still got to do our predictions.
This might be a 2-hour episode.
At Robert P 06492526. There's a lot of people with a lot of numbers tonight.
Are people just putting their phone numbers in their X accounts?
It's their social. It's their social.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. COVID 1, Jamie 0. With our continued success, how do we keep the staff and head coach at Duke? And I think there's going to be a point where we're going to have to pony up the money, first of all, but we're also going to have to realize that we're going to lose a guy like Kevin Johns eventually. We're going to lose guys like Tyler Santucci. They're going to get head coaching jobs. But we really want to be able to fork out money to keep some of those guys and hire replacements when they do get head coaching gigs, because they're going to, and most importantly, keep Coach Elco.
I would say this, Jamie. You said it, but I want to highlight a portion of what you said. I believe that we ought to pay enough money to where Kevin Johns, Santucci, and fill in the blank with any other coach on the staff would not leave for another similar job, but they would leave for a head coaching job, right? We want to pay Kevin Johns enough to where he's not going to go be the offensive coordinator at some other college. Like, we want to pay him enough where he would stay at Duke. Now, if he gets a head coaching opportunity, then that's a different story. So that's what I would say. We want to pay enough to where they don't want to leave and make a lateral move from Duke.
And that's all she wrote. So, Brian, it's all you.
What a segue, Jamie. No, we typically don't do 2 mailbags, but again, we didn't have anyone to talk with about FSU, so
And we're
yeah,
only an hour and 9 minutes in. We're fine.
I get delusional when it gets past 10 o'clock and we're recording. I'm an old man.
Yeah, guys. In case you guys didn't know, if you're listening, watching, Brian is like a 98-year-old man trapped in like a 35-year-old body. So
Grandpa's got to drink his prune juice and get to bed.
that's right. That's right. Put his diaper on.
I'm the oldest guy in the group, and I probably stay up later than all y'all every night.
No argument there.
All right. Well, let's tell the tape time. Brian, let's hear about our opponent, these FSU Seminoles, number 4 in the nation. Let's find out what you have for us. And as always, we look forward to the end of that where you give us the Did You Know? Brian Kennedy, take it away.
And it's still unsponsored, folks. Come on. I can count on you. Sponsor this segment. Tell the tape for the Florida State Seminoles. Last year, Florida State went 10-3 and went to the Cheez-Its Bowl where they defeated Oklahoma 35-32. Now, currently, Florida State is 6-0 and ranked 4th in the country. And last week, the Seminoles took it to Syracuse 41-3. Head coach Mike Norvell is in his 4th season with the Seminoles and has a 62-31 overall coaching record. He's also 1-3 in bowl games all time. Now, before becoming the Florida State head coach in 2020, Norvell was the head coach of the Memphis Tigers from 2016 to 2019. And before that, Norvell had assistant coaching stints at Arizona State, Pitt, and Tulsa. Now, overall, this is the 20th matchup all time between Duke and Florida State. And as we stated earlier, Florida State is a perfect 19-0 against the Duke Blue Devils. The first ever meeting between Duke and Florida State took place on September 5th, 1992 in Doak Campbell Stadium, where FSU defeated Duke soundly 48-21. Now, from 1992 until 2007, the two teams would square off yearly. But since 2007, Duke and FSU have only played each other 5 times. The last meeting between Duke and Florida State took place during COVID on December 12th, 2020, when Florida State defeated Duke 56-35 in Tallahassee. Now, the closest Duke has come to defeating FSU was back in 2017 when the Blue Devils lost 17-10 in Wallace-Wade Stadium. And Mike Elco is 0-3 all-time against FSU when he was the defensive coordinator at Wake Forest. Now it's time for the Did You Know? When entering Doak Campbell Stadium, fans passed by a unique cemetery that was created over 60 years ago. The Sod Cemetery, which commemorates many of FSU's greatest victories, was started in 1962. After a practice, FSU professor Dean Moore challenged the Seminole football team the Thursday before its matchup against then-ranked number 5 Georgia. Moore had helped coach the first FSU team in 1947 and was a mentor to the football program during its time at FSU. Moore said, quote, "Win and bring back some sod from between the hedges of Georgia." The team took Moore's words to heart and upset the Bulldogs 18-0. Team captain Gene McDowell pulled up a small piece of grass from the field and presented it to Moore at the team's next practice. Moore and head coach Bill Peterson buried the grass in the practice field, and a monument was placed to commemorate the victory. Since that first game, sod is brought back to be buried in the cemetery if FSU either wins a game where they are the underdog, which isn't that much, defeats Florida on the road, or if they win the ACC championship, a bowl game, or of course the national championship. Once the sod is buried, a plaque with the score of the game with their opponent is placed above. To date, there are currently 110 different pieces of sod in the Sod Cemetery, with the last burial taking place after this past season's Cheez-It Bowl. Former head coach Bobby Bowden has contributed the most to the Sod Cemetery, as his teams over the years have buried 63 pieces of sod from big games. And that was the tale of the tape for the Florida State Seminoles. Josh?
Man, the not yet sponsored tell the tape. And so that's pretty neat. That's a pretty cool tradition that Florida State has. We're going to be down this weekend, Scott and I. We'll be down there. It's homecoming for them. It's 7:30 start. It's going to be
Take some photos.
Oh, we will. We'll be doing the whole tour. We're getting down there a little bit early as well, so we can see what we can do even on Friday. Well, now it's time to first find out, you the fans, who got the closest to the score and picked the right team, which I hope you did that. And we'll be sending you a free Section 17 or Bleed Blue t-shirt. And then we'll give you our predictions as well. So who do we have win online this past week?
Yeah, we did not have any exact score predictions, but we did have folks pick Duke to beat NC State on Facebook. Jason Rogers, Cash's dad, predicted Duke to win 24-10. So, Jason, we'll be reaching out to you probably after this episode drops. On Twitter, Chris McLaughlin predicted Duke to win 24-17. I believe I picked him because he was the only one that picked Duke's score right. Again, folks, if you pick Duke's score on the nose, you are automatically qualified. If no one picks it, then I go to closest to the actual score. And then on Instagram, Blue Devil Mania, the closest one, predicted Duke to win 24-7. So all three of you will be reached out to by Scott in the coming days to get your free Section 17 t-shirt. Josh?
Awesome. So now, guys, what do we think? We all, I think we all, if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of the season, we all did say this was probably going to be a loss. If I'm not mistaken, I think we all picked that. I could be wrong. Even Jordan Mann, the eternal optimist, the 10-2 Jordan Mann, I think picked this as a loss. And so, yeah, we all did. But I don't know that any of us expected Duke to be sitting here 5-1. I don't know if any of us expected to see Florida State struggle with Boston College a couple of weeks ago like they did. I think Duke beating Clemson the way that Duke beat Clemson, and then watching Florida State and Clemson, go at it, has given Duke confidence. So do we have the over-under and all that? Let's get that first, and then we'll get into our predictions.
Okay, I just checked this before we started recording, so this is the most updated numbers. Over-under is 49 points total. And FSU is still a 14-point favorite, 2 touchdowns on Duke. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I'll get it out of the way. And I'm going to, I've got faith in these guys. It's going to be a tough one. I have something different written down, but I just can't do it. I can't pick Florida State. I cannot do it. I have them written down. I'm going to go Duke 31. Florida State 27. I've got us going white out. White with the Gothic script. Duke, the ones from the Clemson game. White, Gothic script, Duke. Duke 31, Florida State 27. Who's next?
I'll go next. Sorry, Jamie. I didn't see you unmute. So I actually wrote down a Duke win. I'm not changing it. I did not put FSU down. I think this is going to be the game that gets this team over the hump as far as national attention and national recognition. To Scott's point earlier, you pressure Jordan Travis, it's going to be a completely different game, as we've seen against Clemson, against NC State, against some of these other schools. This defensive line can get to the quarterback no matter who they're up against. I'm going to go the route that I think Josh went a couple weeks ago. I've got Duke winning it late 27-24 with a Todd Father game-winning field goal, 27-24. As far as the jersey combination, I have been wrong all year long, and I don't expect that to change this week. I think the equipment staff's having some fun with us. I'm going to go white lid, white jersey, blue bottoms. I don't think we're going to have the white out. Just give me that big blue D on the helmet. I don't see the Gothic script coming back. I think they saved that for home games. We've only seen it for Clemson and Notre Dame. So again, white, blue, big blue D. Jamie?
All right. So in Tallahassee, tough place to play, right? I was going to pick FSU, but I'm not going to. I was going to. I thought about it all day, and I just can't go against this Duke team. But I think we're going to make it into like a more of a defensive slugfest. Yes, I know that FSU has scored 30-plus points, 12 straight games, but we've seen that this is the best defense that Duke has had in my lifetime. And I think that they can continue to make life hard on Jordan Travis. And I also think that we win it with a Todd Polino field goal. 20-17. Duke lose to Tallahassee with a win, 20-17. Jerseys, I'm going to go also icy whites like Josh, but I'm going to change up with the big blue D.
Well, yeah. Obviously, even if I was going to pick Florida State, you can't do it now. You can't be that guy, which is fine because don't really want to pick them anyway. But I had thought about it. I'm like Jamie earlier, heart, mind, soul. But I'm a Duke fan, so why in God's name would I pick some stupid Seminoles? At this point, I think, Jamie almost got what I was going to do. I'm going to say 21-17 Duke. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I do think it's going to be a defensive battle. I'm hoping that it's worse than that. Maybe 38-7 Duke would be nice, or 28-3 or something like that for Duke. But anyway, and as far as the uniforms, we haven't seen it yet. The icy whites, it's going to happen. I don't think they would go blue pants because I think Florida State's going to go with the Seminole, the burgundy, and the maroon, and the gold, I'm assuming. So I think we go icy white. I do like the idea of the Gothic Duke on it, but I'm going to go with that big old blue D.
Man, you guys are fans of that.
If they save the Hellraiser first, well, it is a special occasion. It's FSU. We don't play them every year. You're probably going to be right, Josh. We'll see, though.
We'll see. We have no info on that. And the Lord knows if we had info on it, Brian Kennedy would be giddy the entire episode, just ready to get it right. The one time we did have inside info, we lied to every one of you and acted like we did not know.
Even me.
Even me. That was difficult. So anyway, this has been a great episode. We want to thank each and every one of you for following along, for being a part of the Section 17 family. Just as a reminder, there are 2 home games left. If you need tickets to either one of those, if you made it this far in the episode, we'll just tell you, if you need tickets to those, hit up the DMs. We got you. We'll take care of you on that until they run out. But we really want to see you in the stands there for Wallace Wade for the Wake Forest game. We'll be giving you some information, too, about a potential pregame hangout for the Wake Forest game, since we're not going to be able to tailgate. Give you some information about that, and then also information potentially about the UNC game, about what we may be doing. And so with that, am I missing anything, Scott, Jamie, anything from you guys? It's been a good episode. Brian, you ready to take us out of here?
Yeah, and I got to say, Trent Pace, thanks for calling me out last week. I, for some reason, thought we were playing Louisville this upcoming weekend. To Jamie's excuse, I blame COVID. COVID did it, but it is FSU, 7:30, ABC. I promise I'll keep the schedule straight moving forward. Scott?
I was just going to say, Trent actually gets to keep his spot in Section 17 because had all of his future family that was there wearing the state colors, had they won, Trent was getting ready to get booted off 17 Island.
Yeah, it's a very exclusive place, folks, and we hope to see as many of you there November 2nd, Thursday night, 7:30 kickoff against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. But another episode in the books. We are all looking forward to watching the FSU game, whether it be in person like Scott and Josh, or whether it be on TV like Jamie and myself. But we hope to see y'all in the coming weeks. If you see us out in public, don't be afraid to say hey to us. We don't bite people's heads off. We're nice. But until next week, for the reaction episode and the upcoming Louisville game, for Josh Cox, for Scott Medlin, for Jamie Holt, and producer Justin Sykes, I'm Brian Kennedy, and this has been another episode of the Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast.
Now turn the music up.